I've had a few people ask me recently how I make videos like this, the animations of essentially rotations or tactics boards in football. So what I thought I'd do is we'll switch to our desktop and show you guys how you can make something like this in PowerPoint. It's actually really simple. So let's go ahead and dive in. A couple of major concepts that we're going to think about. Number one are our pieces that we're trying to animate. In this case, it's going to be these little round tokens or discs. Right? We're going to put them into our formations that we want, and we can rotate between these formations. We can also then start to introduce enemies, and we'll come through these examples in a sec. So that's the first thing. The second thing is just making sure that we have the transition morph. So in PowerPoint, we can go select all our slides, transitions, and make sure that we've got the morph transition. What this will do is essentially move each of these positions into their next position where it can. So for example, this will move into a position over onto here. And because we're going between them for the formations, for example, we can show how these formations tweak, right, or change depending on how we want to play them. We can add in an enemy, right? And now we can start to do things like different passing patterns and options. This is a goal kick. How do we play out from our goal kicks? So how can we do something like this ourselves? So let's get rid of these ones in here, right? We're going to start with our goal kick. And because we did a little bit of scouting, we know that the team that we're playing against on the weekend, they have a solid three midfield that they keep really compact, and they like to play their front three really high. It leaves a bit of a gap behind, right? But they want to press quickly, try and win it with their front three, and if not, then the defending is a bit of a block below. And we're going to work on our ability for our wingers to know when they should be staying and when they should be going, right? So let's give them a player each. The centre backs are going to go man for man, and we've got our scenario. In this case, right, what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate our slide, and we're going to start animating. So in this case, I want our centre back to sort of check in a little bit, and I want our defensive mid to check in a little bit, and that's going to force this player to make a decision. Right, so let's say that they go towards this side. Awesome. If they choose this side, right, which is what we're sort of hoping they'll do, we can play the ball out. So we're going to play the ball out this way. Right. We're now facing forward. It's probably more likely that we're not facing forward, so let me just grab the wrong piece. This player starts to come in, midfield starts to come in, and they block off this ball back across the middle. Okay, what do we want our winger to do in this scenario? Well, there's still an option, right? If we can turn on this ball, there's still an option here. So we're going to keep them, maybe checked in just a tiny bit, right? And it's really hard now, if they want to check all the way in, for this fullback to follow. It creates a massive space here for our midfield, and for our strikers. So we're going to go into our next slide, the next sort of phase that we're looking at, and we're going to say, okay, well, if this winger checks in, right, and tries to close down the space that's here, we're going to play the ball to our fullback. And this is the cue, right, that we need to give our winger. This is where you need to be ready. There's now some pressure that can be applied to this ball, right? You need to make sure you get nice and wide, and we're going to receive the ball out here. We want to make sure that our centre mids as well are ready to receive in that half space, right, with a little 1-2 if they're pressed, and if they're not, then they can turn and play forward. So let's see what that looks like. The ball starts to go across a little bit, so there's going to be a bit more pressure. We want our centre mid in this case to start to step up, and trying to drag this player and open the space for our opposite midfielder, and our fullback just to step in a little bit. And we'll ignore everyone else for the moment. So we duplicate this slide, and now that we know there's pressure on the ball, right, we want to give this ball to go up to our winger. Right, again, some pressure is going to potentially come in, and if this person comes in like we said, right, if this fullback is going to press hard, this is where we have that now gap, right? So this player might start to follow across a little bit. We can step up a bit. So we animate the next slide and we say, cool, we're going to give this ball inside, right? We're going to try and run down the line. Right? We're really quick. We've got some fast wingers, so we're going to do this. This player's going to get onto that ball. Right? There's going to be a bit of coverage here. And another midfielder screaming through. Opposite wingers coming through. And we want to try and get in front of this player here. Cool. And this player is actually going to check towards goal. Right? We want to make this pocket of space as big as possible. And final one is we're going to say, cool, we want our winger to, let's say, just run down this line, receive this ball, right, going to start to come to cover. The fullback's going to be trying to cover. We've got a little front post run here, a little back post run here, and we're going to have sitting outside the box, and a little bit of support from there. So we've now worked on how we want to play out, and we can just animate or record this or show this live, which is the ball's going to be played to one of these two players depending on where that gets split. Then we can play back to our fullback. We can check in or go wide, making sure they're an option, play back inside, right, and make a break down that wing. And what we've been able to do is sort of work on a passing pattern with both an enemy and us. The last thing I wanted to really show you guys, just to get like one sort of caveat with a system or something like this, is let's just get rid of all these players here. We'll keep this player. If we wanted to say we want this player to, let's say, check into this ball while they make a front post run, right, we'll say in here, we've got to create another slide. So we've got starting position and where we want this to go. So this player to check in, and this player to just sort of move into this box area, right? That's what we're after. Well, if I actually go back and animate this now, we'll run the transition. It's probably not what we're going to see. Oh, no, okay, it worked this time. But often what happens is if we create nodes without labels, so I may have labeled these last time, right? And we got this one here, right? Both of these nodes exist, but they're exactly the same as each other, right? Copy paste. And so if I'm getting them to move up and down in a line, right, this isn't an issue because as we animate it, the closest spot for these two are their other spots, right? So they will go between each other. The problem occurs when we start to say, okay, well, what if I want this one to go over here and this one to go over here? Well, because they're a copy-paste, right, they're the same node, and PowerPoint wants them to go to the closest position of the same thing. So we're not actually going to see that crossover that we talked about, right? There's no overlap in this. Instead, what we need to do is we need to make sure these are labeled, and we can do that a couple of ways, right? So we can just say, cool, let's go back up to here. This is going to be a striker, right? And this one is going to be a center back, right? And we want our center back and striker to overlap, right? So let's just get rid of these for a sec. So we've got our same thing. We want our striker to go this way and our center back to go this way on the second slide. So as we animate it, we now get that overlap, right? Which is something that we weren't getting before. You can, in these disk forms, right? We can do this. We can say, okay, cool. We've got a shape here. And we can say we want the text color to be the same as, right, the color of the disk. So now we don't actually see any labels, and it just looks like a normal disk. And the data is still there, though, and so we'll still see the overlap, even though we don't actually have a label on that node anymore that we can see. So there's sort of the basics for how to animate a tactic board. I hope that that was something that was useful for you guys.